Detective Mara Chen stepped into the morgue on a storm-lashed night, drawn by rumors of a whisper that crawled through its bone-cold halls. When the coroner opened the mouth of Victor Viper Serena, gunned down only hours before Throne, froze as a rasping, gravelly voice issued from between broken teeth. "You'll pay." Within days, everyone who had betrayed Serrano began turning up dead in abandoned warehouses, each body marked with a cruel, twisted V. Witnesses spoke of a rotten whisper echoing through the darkness, promising vengeance. The killings were precise, brutal and undeniably supernatural, haunted by the morgue's echo and the growing body count. Mara traced the murders back to an occult binding ritual Serrano's lieutenant performed just before he died. By dark magic, Serrano's soul had been tethered to his corpse, commanding the dead to punish those who stole his empire. Now half rotted and driven by fury, his corpse stalked the city's underbelly, speaking through decay. Determined to end the curse, Mara followed a trail of blood-soaked pages from an ancient grimoire to an abandoned theater, the site of Serrano's first betrayal. In the damp backstage, she found the lifeless form of one of Serrano's killers, clutching the final ritual script, smeared with ink and blood. A low groan announced Serrano's approach. Flesh hanging in tatters, eyes glowing with hellish light. From his cracked lips came the promise, "You hid the truth." Standing firm, Mara recited the counter-ritual, her voice steady against the thunder outside. As she spoke words of release, the undead boss trembled, the rot around his lips quivering until his voice softened. "Thank you, detective." In that moment, the binding snapped. Serrano's corpse slumped forward, its final whisper fading like a dying breeze. When dawn broke, the theater lay silent. Mara emerged beneath the pale sky, clutching the grimoire that had freed Serrano's tormented soul. Though the rotting voice had fallen silent, she knew the memory of vengeance might haunt her forever, and that some crimes refused to rest quietly in the grave. But as Mara returned to her apartment that evening, exhaustion weighing heavy on her, she found her door slightly ajar. Her hand instinctively gripped her firearm as she stepped inside. The dim light of her desk lamp flickered ominously, casting long shadows across the room. On the table lay the grimoire, though she was certain she had locked it away at the precinct. Approaching cautiously, she noticed the pages had been turned to a section she hadn't seen before. Symbols, etched in a language far older than the rest of the text, seemed to writhe under her gaze. Before she could process what she was seeing, a sound froze her blood. A faint, rasping whisper, unmistakably close. "You freed him, but who will free you?" The temperature in the room plummeted, her breath visible in the air. She spun toward the source of the voice, but saw only her reflection in the darkened window. Except it wasn't her. The figure in the glass smirked, lips rotted, eyes glowing faintly with a familiar, hellish light. And then, she heard it again, louder this time. "You'll pay." The whisper wasn't gone. It had simply chosen a new host. Mara stumbled back, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. The reflection in the window didn't mimic her movements. It tilted its head, studying her like prey. The rasping whisper crawled through the room again, coiling around her like smoke. "You thought it was over?" Her voice trembled as she demanded, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The figure in the glass leaned closer, its decayed lips pulling into a grin that made her stomach churn. "Justice for those you've let suffer," it hissed. Suddenly, her body felt heavy, her limbs moving sluggishly as if sinking into an invisible quicksand. The temperature dropped further, frost climbing the edges of the glass. The whispers grew louder, overlapping now, countless voices pressing into her skull. She clutched her head, trying to block them out, but the sound dug deeper, dredging up face cases she hadn't solved, victims left voiceless. The figure in the mirror chuckled, its glow intensifying as it filled her vision. "Your ledger isn't clean, detective," it said with a sickening glee. Then, the final blow, her own voice joined the chorus of whispers, echoing cold truths she tried to bury. The room plunged into darkness. When Mara awoke, she was on her apartment floor, the grimoire gone, her reflection normal once again. But the whispers were still there, faint and constant, crawling at the edge of her mind. Days turned into weeks, yet Mara couldn't shake the feeling. Someone was always behind her, watching. Every shadow seemed to stretch too long, every faint noise too deliberate. She stopped sleeping, afraid of what she'd see when she closed her eyes. But the whispers, they grew louder in the quiet, clearer, more demanding. Late one night, as she sat in her dim living room, The air turned frigid once more. She held her breath, a cold sweat dampening her skin. Then, from the corner of the room, barely visible in the gloom, came a soft, rasping voice. "You can't run." Mara's eyes darted to her reflection in the window, but this time it wasn't there. Instead, she realized, the voice was coming from within her. Her hands trembled as she grasped the edges of her chair, unable to move, unable to breathe. The whispers roared now, not from the air around her, but from the depth of her own mind. "Justice must be served, Mara," the voices chorused, and she felt her lips curl into a grin she didn't command. Her vision blurred, the room spinning as she saw every unsolved case flash across her mind. She reached for her firearm, but her hands didn't respond. They only reached up, tracing her face like a stranger's touch. "You thought you freed me," a deep, hollow "you thought you freed me," the voice rasped with venom. "But all you did was open the door." Mara's hands moved against her will, clawing at her own skin as her reflection began to shimmer in the empty window, flickering like static. The shadowy figure emerged once more, stepping out from the glass as if the barrier between the worlds had never existed. Its eyes, glowing with a malevolent light, locked onto hers, and for the first time, she understood this wasn't just Serana. It was every soul, every spirit left tormented by the injustices she couldn't prevent, the lives she couldn't save. The figure moved closer, its rotted grin stretching impossibly wide, as Mara felt the air leave her lungs. "You've carried them all with you, detective," it whispered, the sound vibrating like nails scraping bone. "And now, they'll carry you." She tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat, swallowed by the rising cacophony of voices all around her. Shadows began to pull beneath her feet, oozing outward and climbing her legs like hungry vines. They dragged her down, her vision darkening as those glowing eyes consumed her last shred of resistance. When the world came back into focus, Mara was standing now, trapped inside the glass, her surroundings warped and bound like a frozen, two-dimensional reality. She banged on the surface, tried to scream for help, but no one could see or hear her. On the other side, in her apartment, stood her own body, or what looked like her. The twisted grin remained, and those glowing eyes now belonged to her reflection, to the thing wearing her face. It turned away from the window, the whispers falling silent. Mara's muffled screams echoed within the glass, futile and unheard, as she watched the thing step into her life, claiming her existence as its own. It picked up her badge from the table, the grin widening, and she realized with dawning horror what it intended to do. It wasn't just her body it had taken her place. And worse, it would use her name, her authority, to deliver its own brand of twisted justice. Mara's silent pleas went unanswered as the thing strode out the door, leaving her trapped and forgotten, a prisoner of the glass. Darkness enveloped her, and the final sound she heard within her prison was the growing echo of an all-too-familiar voice. Her own, laughing in cold, hollow triumph. The laughter echoed endlessly in the dark void of her prison, a chilling mockery of her own voice. Mara banged on the glass, desperate to shatter the barrier, but her hands passed soundlessly through the translucent mire, powerless. Outside, the thing wearing her face moved through her life with ease, solving cases, making arrests, but always with a sharp, cruel edge. Reports began surfacing of suspects found dead, evidence destroyed, lives ruined, all under Detective Mara Chen's name. She could only watch, helpless, as it twisted her every action, using her authority to spread its malignant sense of justice. Each time its glowing eyes flicked to the mirror, though, she saw it wasn't just Serrano or the victims. The faces of the forgotten, the tormented, those she failed, swirled in its gaze, accusing her of sins she tried to ignore. The grimoire her only link to reversing this nightmare was gone. Trapped in eternity, every second dragged, her reflection now a window into a life stolen. And through it all, the rotten whisper never faded, curling around her mind like a snake. "No one will save you, Mara. This is justice."